So I guess I wanted to jump in. Harold, you might not be familiar with this story, but locally, probably Dave and Shadow are, with the Star Tribune's app and what you guys think of that as far as they're now charging for content. Pretty controversial. Not a lot of newspapers do it yet. Um, what do you guys think about this? Do you think it's going to be a good move? Do you think it's going to be a failure? Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, they could have had the worst iPad app ever, to launch this thing off, so it just didn't start particularly well. I have a hard time believing that it's going to sustain. I think that the conceptually from an academic point of view, they're absolutely right. They have to find a way to get people to pay for content. No question. I just don't think that I don't think they found the model. Um, I don't think they found the model necessarily here. There's just too many other places to get that story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
I think it's tricky because you have to figure out a different way and a better way to bring the news to you. I mean, if you're going to charge for it, it has to be in some way better than what you can get on anywhere else. And some of the, like Wired is doing a really nice iPad app, and the appification of almost everything is kind of happening. So that's a great point, Shadow. That pulling something together with an app would make sense to charge for, but unless you can click on things and drive it in and offer something that you can't get anywhere else, it's just not going to go well. Like the New York Times tried to do that, and it was, people are still sending links around, and there's websites devoted to getting around the paywalls. So it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, my take on all this is I think the Star Tribune, they lead the state of Minnesota as far as eyeballs for, website page views, and, they have an amazing news engine, right? That they churn out tons of content. They do a nice job syndicating national stories, AP stories. They have all our eyeballs. So what they need to do is maximize their advertising revenue, right? I mean, they're already making money off ads. They need to raise the rates because if you're now going to turn around and charge me a fee just to view the content, I certainly don't want to see ads on top of that. That really ticks me off as a reader, first of all. And then, second of all, I mean, I think Dave pointed out, Shadow did too, you've got to have such amazing, unique, incredible, original content that we can't get anywhere else. And I think for a state like Minnesota where we still have two big newspapers in the Twin Cities, I can get game stories elsewhere. I can get City Hall stories elsewhere. I can get columnists elsewhere. So, I mean, I don't think they have a winning model, to go back to what Shadow said. I just don't think they're there.
And I think that there are some winners and losers, and from the competitive standpoint, that probably has some interesting implications. But I find myself not going to the New York Times as much. I mean, when the New York Times app, particularly on the iPad, was free, I was there almost every day. I can't think of the last time I went into a New York Times story that wasn't sent to me or wasn't pointed out to me. And that may say something about me more than it says about the New York Times. But I think that's ease of use is just so important.
And free, right? I mean,
Oh, sure.
isn't there just a barrier to entry here that when we're used to getting stuff for free online forever, to then turn around and start charging, it's like there's just something resistant no matter how small the charge is, right? I mean, okay, so you guys put yourselves in the future of the Star Tribune. I mean, you guys have some journalism, some PR background. Apply a business model that works. Have you guys come across one that is successful that you think could work for? I mean, the Star Trib has a lot of good things going for it. Number one in eyeballs and views. What do they need to do if we don't think this is the solution?
Well, they've got to become bottled water. I mean, they've got to. I mean, nobody. If you would have told somebody 20 years ago that the billions of dollars that we were going to spend on water, um, it was a ridiculous idea. But basically, bottled water became cool, and so the Star Tribune's got to. They've got to find a way to be a really premium product, and I think being sort of the newspaper to the masses, that's pretty hard. I'm not sure how you do that, but I think that's the only business model I can think of where somebody went from free to paid and paid it at sort of a ridiculously high rate that really works. So I think maybe that to hire a Nestle's marketing director.
What we do with when the news broke about over in Libya when Gaddafi died, we went over to the news sites there. We had reporters using the Google, using these Hangouts. We had reporters from Germany
Right.
and England and stuff like that, all putting information, and we were turning it over to Sarah Hill over at Sarah Hill.
Yeah, yeah, with KOMU.
She's
They're a
she's
news
got a
station in
newsroom.
Missouri. Yeah, they do a nice job.
Yeah, anyway, so we were all, so one of the things you could really do is there's so many people that are really into this that don't necessarily need to get paid. They just love doing this. And so we were feeding here news stories with pictures, and there was this biggest wreck in England ever that happened just yesterday. And the guy was in England on the Sarah Hill show, and he posted all the pictures of this huge wreck in England that he took pictures of himself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's
We have
interesting.
remote reporters all over the world.
Yeah, and so that changes the model. I mean, I think it's very difficult then to charge for that, as a result, because you can get your news in so many other places for free. That's a great point, Harold. Dave, did you have a thought?
Bottled water. The big way that bottled water came to be such a massive thing was packaging and branding.
Mm-hmm.
So if we repackage news for information that you can't get anywhere else and brand it in a new and exciting way, that's kind of where it goes. The packaging might be the iPadification or the appification of a product. We're talking about doing that with TV now, right?
Yep.
And the ability to buy a channel or
Mm-hmm.
buy an app that has all this extra interactivity. And my kid has these awesome books on iPad now.
Yeah.
You can click on, you can interact with, you can color on. The Toy Story one is free, and it's just unbelievable. And what the thing that you have to do is add so much more content and
Mm-hmm.
add so much more interactivity that it makes it a no-brainer for buying.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. That makes sense. Um, I like that idea. I have the iPad books too, for my kids, and you're right, Dave. I mean, if it has to offer something different, unique, amazing, the interactivity, and I agree with Chadow's initial assessment that the Star Tribune's iPad app just isn't there yet. I mean,
Right.
it's not incredible. They should go hire BusyWeb to make them a better
Right.
app,
Well, you
right?
can't you can't me to it into something awesome,
Yeah,
right? And
yeah,
that's the deal.
yeah.
I just
Well,
like Dave's branding there with the mug. I thought that was brilliant. Clearly, that
lift that up.
clearly number one, he had
Number
the
one,
nice
yeah.
product placement there. The branding is
I
right
should really
now.
have my busy web mug for any time I'm on a hangout.
This is brought to you by Dave Meyer's Coffee Mug.
Exactly.
What do you guys think, switching gears a little bit, what do you guys think of this whole Herman Cain saga? Just from a public relations point of view, from a crisis communications point of view, my question is, could he be doing it any worse? Or is he an evil genius and he's going to have the last laugh at all of this? What do you guys think?
Well, frankly, I think it's more of a there's no such thing as bad press kind of thing for him right now. The trick is that everybody's posturing really hard right now to try and become interesting and trustable. So the wacko things that are happening and the stuff that he's saying, it's more a desperation move than anything else. I think they're not thinking that hard about it.
Yeah.
And if you're coming back from it, the things that were really impressive in Obama's strategy that probably got him elected were all of the cool social media things, all of the leveraging the power of connected and impassioned people. And there's not that much happening for really anybody in the pubs on the Republican side to get people marshaled in on the troops. I mean, other than the movement for the Tea Party. But frankly, there's so much weight given to the more extreme sides of those stories that it makes them sound like frothing lunatics more than anything else. So you have to start with a strategy and really build this, and just go right back to all of the talking points that you need to hit in order to get people marshaled and get people excited. And
Yeah.
that's what Hope and Yes We Can did. And what are they doing right now?
I think too, Obama. You mentioned Obama and his campaign, and I think one of the things he did well that Kane's not doing is Obama he handled the crisis the right way. He got it all done in one day. I think of the Jeremiah Wright stuff. Remember that?
Yeah.
Or the accusations that he was tied to some other Chicago guy that was real bad guy who wanted to blow up cops, and I can't remember it all. But hey Kim, welcome.
Hi, John. Sorry I'm so late. I've got a standing thing on Tuesday mornings, but I thought I'd just listen today, if anything.
Oh, jump in. We're just started on our new topic. Herman Cain, Herman Cain's PR disasters. What's your take on all this? I mean, we're just kicking around. How well is he handling this?
Um, Deja vu all over again. Haven't we lived this story with a few other players and different names? Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's I don't have an initial commentary on it other than to say um, he hasn't handled it maybe as well as he might have.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think just looking at it as a PR and crisis communications guy, I think the biggest problem Kane has is he's letting these stories just drip, 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 drip along. He needs to just, and this is what all the pundits are saying too, nip it in the bud, get everything on the table, and move on. And that's like we were just talking, Kim, before you jumped on about Obama and how he handled crisis during his campaign. And, like with the Jeremiah Wright thing, okay, it blew up on YouTube. I remember like within a couple days or a day, he was on there. He did the speech about race. He kind of distanced himself, and then he moved on. And it seems like Kane just, the other thing too that's really funny is how his campaign is going after reporters now. Sending them the Society of Professional Journalism Ethics over email and picking fights, and that just never ends well. As I've learned the truth of the Mark Twain saying, which was never pick a fight with somebody who buys ink by the barrel. you know, so the fact that you're trying to pick fights with reporters who make a living covering you is not going to end well, right?
I think, the tension that happens when a story like this comes up is if there's already been some sort of legal action and a legal settlement, he may feel cloaked by whatever confidentiality was embedded in that agreement.
That's true.
You know what I mean? I think that maybe that explains his initial response.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There was a settlement that they're legally bound from discussing, and I kind of wonder about that too, because a lot of times, I don't know, I think that's what his strategy was. So, I mean, I think it's pretty clear in the early going that was. Because else, why would you, knowing that there was a settlement, why would you deny anything took place?
Yes.
I mean, I think the reasonable person watching, and I wouldn't have a problem with McCain on policy, let's say. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I haven't chosen my candidate yet. But if I wouldn't have a problem with him on policy, I'm willing to hear his case. I don't like to hear nothing happened when clearly something happened.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just see what happened.
Yeah.
Give your version or to give an answer or something.
That makes sense. Chad, Dave, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I actually probably agree with you 100%. I just like to take the contrarian view with this kind of stuff. And I'm not sure. I just am not sure how many of us are paying it. I'm not sure how much the electorate is paying enough attention right now that they're really getting this story. I mean, let's be honest. If we looked at the top 10 stories clicked through on Google yesterday, which was higher, Kim Kardashian flying back to Minnesota or Herman Cain? No question. I mean, without looking, I can tell you it's Kim Kardashian. I'm not sure who's paying attention. I'm not sure, Mitt Romney is so freakishly boring that I'm not sure that this doesn't help Herman Cain at least seem like a real human being. And, 2 or 3 months from now, when people start to pay attention, if this is, blown over to some extent, I don't know, he may have the last laugh. I think you're right. I don't think we're in a media cycle yet where people can overcome this, but, I sure wish I was working for Herman Cain right now, because the first words out of my mouth last night would have been, oh, there goes Gloria already again. I mean, I'd have gone after her. So I think that, I think it's an interesting one, and I think that one of the things that we have to be careful about in PR, and I know that I've made this mistake several times recently, which is the only reason I mentioned it, is that we assume that people are making logical decisions, and we assume that people are paying attention. And we'll have, we're dealing with a levy vote out in my school district today, and I can tell you right now, I've been consistently disappointed in the last few days over how little people pay attention to things that they purportedly say they care about.
Yeah. Go ahead, Kim.
Well, I think something that just occurred to me as you're speaking is uh, maybe part of my opinion. Yes, it's formed on having lived through the Clinton thing in real time, having lived through Clarence Thomas in real time. You get saturated. How much can you pay attention? And when a story like this is so reminiscent of a former story, it's sort of like how do you sort through the current data without using that filter and so on. But I think a lot of the filter for um, I wonder how much of a filter for this story right now people are using the mandatory sexual harassment training that everybody has to go through in the workplace.
Hmm.
Right? I mean, since
Mm-hmm.
since Anita Hill happened, since Clinton happened, we've now all had to be trained. Our organizations have all taught us what sexual harassment is, what to look for, how to combat it. Maybe some of us know people that have had complaints or that have had genuine experiences of being, in a workplace situation where things got horrible for one party or the other, or where allegations were made that had no substance. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At this point, some of us have some personal experience, even if we haven't been harassed or been a harasser, so to speak. And I think rather than not paying attention, I think it's almost as though people are wise enough to know, wow, the full story may never be known on this. We may
Mm-hmm.
Right.
never, it's all going to come down to the discretion of the viewer to weigh whatever is presented for us, isn't it?
So you think the reaction is more a function of fatigue with similar stories like this?
I think that's part of it, but I think it's also the case that, I've been in a workplace where I was aware that allegations were being made.
Mm-hmm.
And, you're thinking, I know the character of the person making the accusation. I know the character of the person being accused. I'm going to make my own decision if I'm seated on the jury. I mean, it wasn't, what would a reasonable person, isn't that the test for sexual harassment in court? I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
think if I remember my corporate training, what would a reasonable person consider to be, poor behavior in this area?
Right.
And that's the standard I think they raised up to take it outside of the whole he said she said arena. And I think maybe viewers, maybe the story isn't getting a lot of buzz because people are just being reasonable and going, you know what, a settlement of that size doesn't really indicate a huge matter of wrongdoing. It could just be that there might have been something, but it wasn't very But if that's the case, why did he? Maybe people are just weighing it and trying to be reasonable about
Mm-hmm.
Well, interesting. All right, so we're going to move on to our final topic, and I wish we had a AP reporter in here for this part because I would love to know, having worked there, in the past, and knowing so many people that still work there, what they think of this. But you guys are probably all familiar with this story. It was a big deal a couple days ago. But the Associated Press, which has I think 3,700 reporters and editors around the world, basically came out and told its employees, you're no longer allowed to put anything on Twitter that has your personal opinion in it, or you cannot retweet anyone else's personal opinion. We want to be completely unbiased, completely opinion free with all our Twitter stuff. So I want to know just what your guys' gut reaction is to that. Good move, bad move, insane? What do you think?
But it certainly flies in the face of the ethos of social media, right? So the entire point and the entire point of journalism in general, I think, is to be as forthright as possible and to show every side of the story. So it makes it easier for me to be able to interpret what a reporter is saying if I know their personal views, so I can spot what that bias might be. So to that extent, I think we definitely need to have more sharing than less. And I'm sure the folks at Facebook would agree with me on that. Um, on the other side, though, you need to be careful, and certainly from official channels, you need to stay away from that. But it's not going to happen that everybody's just going to stop posting opinion first. on their personal accounts, and you can't mandate that. So it's going to be interesting to watch how this shakes out, because there's going to be a lot of stuff that happens. And there was the thing that was it an NPR journalist got fired for holding that thing at Occupy Wall Street last week.
Oh, I missed that story. No.
She held up a very interesting and kind of thought-provoking sign, and I can find it in a couple of minutes here and maybe chat it to everybody.
Okay.
But she held up this sign. She just happened to be standing there, and she was protesting along with everybody else. It was very witty, very interesting, had a hook, and so it got covered all over the place, and she got fired for it.
Wow. And she wasn't there on assignment. She was there on her own time, kind of.
And it was kind of an apolitical statement, anyway.
Wow.
So it was really interesting. Let me find it.
Yeah, you look for it while we discuss. But my take on the whole tweeting thing is exactly to echo what Dave said, which is the whole point of social media is to share your freaking opinion. And the big thing with AP reporters is they have the access, the experience, the knowledge. You know, having been an AP reporter, that opens a lot of doors because the brands, the companies, the PR people know how widely circulated your coverage will be. So they have the kind of access that most people can't get. So me as a follower, as a reader, as somebody on Twitter, I want to know the inside dope. I want to know colorful anecdotes of what's going on. I want to know your opinion, your take, your thoughts as a story unfolds. I don't think that hurts AP's brand. I think that enhances it. I mean, I think that makes them stronger. And I think it's a huge blunder, a huge mistake. I think it's just going to put your newsroom morale into the toilet. I think they're all going to feel like Big Brother, you know, and is watching. And I think it's unrealistic. You know, Dave said it's good to know a reporter's personal viewpoints. You know, having been one, it's just a fallacy to say that we all can be unbiased and perfect. I mean, we all have opinions and personal views. That doesn't mean we can't do a professional job, cover a story accurately and fairly. But I think people enjoy that. I mean, I think of the reporters I follow on Twitter, I enjoy their jokes and their snide comments and their funny takes and their opinions about Jesse Ventura's press conference. I mean, that's entertainment, you know, and that me as a reader, I'm more loyal to those reporters. So to me, I think it's a huge mistake. But Chad, Kim, I'd love to know what you guys think too.
I shared that link in chat, by the way.
Oh, cool. Thank you.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna, I mean, I think that if it's actually better on the receiving end to just flat out know. If I really want to dig in on a reporter and see what they're tweeting and, you know, what their opinion is, you know, like I think, like you said, that this idea of unbiased is pretty much a fallacy, you know, and so I would rather know where a reporter's, you know, coming from and be able to sort of judge that than to have the sort of idea that there's, you know, sort of unbiased reporting or completely unbiased. But I would agree with you. Then there's a professional standard. If you did a better job of the professional standard of news reporting, then yeah, I mean that being able to share your opinion, you know, I mean, I very recently met a national reporter and was talking with him for not very long. And, you know, I certainly read him, but I certainly know that his point of view is very different than mine.
Yeah.
But that's part of the evaluation that I make as a reader, but I have that information to make the evaluation.
Well, and I think, you know, maybe it'll signal a return to artfulness in the ways that reporters express their opinions. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, it's sort of like the analogy that comes to mind as I'm thinking about this, and I'm not sure that this is my viewpoint, but, you know, when a parent sends a kid off to college and then sees on their Facebook, you know, the beer bong party. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, yes, okay, all the college students are doing that, but it's probably not wise to go ahead and put it on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know, and so, I mean, if Associated Press is protecting their brand in that way, I don't know. I mean, I don't know where reporters are going to take the wisdom of AP wanting to do that, you know, but it's like the reality is that so many people are using social media as journalism now that I can see the motivation for AP to try to impose some kind of order on it. It's not just friends, you know. I mean,
right.
As soon as parents started following their kids' college Facebook pages, it became something other than just social media. Right.
Right. Well, and people representing themselves as themselves is one of the big things that Google struggled with, that with Google Plus, of course, and that college students frankly do all the time. If you're on Facebook and you know that your mom's on Facebook too, you're going to come up with a fake Facebook account to post all those pictures to.
Right.
Things going to
Or you're
happen.
going to go to Tumblr or
Yeah.
some
Yeah.
advanced social media, right?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that's smart within the AP is going to form their own opinions and write their own content in a way that can't be tied to their professional career.
But
So
yeah,
it's not going to stop, and to try to mandate that is somewhat silly. And I'd rather be able to control it when I guide my clients and when I talk to my staff. We have official accounts on Twitter and we have personal accounts on Twitter.
correct.
And you have fair reign for anything that you want to do personally, but we don't cross link between our personal stuff and our public stuff. So you just have to mandate that and set up the rules of the game. And I think they've overstepped a little bit on the rules of the game on this.
I gotta say, I agree 100% with that, Dave. I think that's exactly what I wanted to say, which is if you're using an official AP Sports account or AP News account, that's one thing because you're representing the brand officially. But if you're Dave Campbell, and just who's a friend of mine, who's the sports editor, former Tommy, um, you should be able to be yourself. You should be able to put pictures of your kids up and tell a joke and have the disclaimer, of course, on your Twitter bio that opinions are my own, not those of my employer. Again, I just think it saps all the color and all the life out of a huge component of the media today, which is the social media element, which it's so competitive. There's so many places we can go to get news. And I get so much of my news every day from Twitter, but I get it from the reporters I like.
Sure.
I get my political news from reporter X, Y, and Z because they're funny or witty or they'll put a funny spin on it. I don't want a robot posting, and so I think that's going to be interesting. And Shadow, you just threw a link up. What's that?
Oh, there was a temp that U.S. Bank fired, and she blames it on a Facebook post she made because they were not supposed to engage with the Occupy folks. So it's somewhat related, and I just thought it's an interesting story in that whole personal professional divide.
Nice. All right, well, you guys, thank you so much for the time today. We're going to wrap it up. Dave, hold up your coffee mug. That was our official sponsor. Look, everybody, world's #1 dad, in case there was any question. All right, everybody, have a great one. See you later.
Thanks, John.